Today I am going to tell you a story from Korea. The name of the story is called The Flying Fairy Wife. The woman is flying. It's a fairy princess is going to be a wife of a man, and she's going to fly. Anyway, many years ago, in the country called Korea, Korea is a country next to Japan. In Korea, there was a woodcutter. He was a young woodcutter who worked very hard. Woodcutter means someone who goes to the forest and cut trees. Anyway, this woodcutter was a young man, and he was very handsome, good looking, and he worked very hard, and he was a very nice man, kind man, and strong man. But he was a woodcutter, and he did not make very much money, so he was a very poor man. He did not have very much money. And so he lived in a small house. He lived in a tiny hut in the forest. But he was about 28 years old, and he really wanted to have a wife. He really wished to get married. He longed for a wife. He wished for a wife. Long for means to have you want to have something very much. Long for. He really longed for a wife. But he didn't think he can have a wife because he was a very poor man. He thought he had very little to give to a woman. He felt he had very little to offer to a woman. And so every day he went to work, and he worked hard and came home, and he lived very lonely life. He lived alone. He lived all by himself. He lived alone. And he lived a very quiet life. Every day he woke up and went to work and came home and made dinner. He ate it and he went to sleep. And he did this every day without much excitement. But one day, something happened. He went to a forest, and he was cutting the trees there, and then all of a sudden he heard some big noise. There was a noise of a hunt. Hunting people were making a lot of noise. They were shooting guns. Bang, 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 bang. He heard a noise of a hunt. And then, after a while, all of a sudden, something came out of the bushes. Bush is the small trees, not a tall tree, but small trees, like rose bush. Anyway, there were some bushes there, and something came out very suddenly from the bushes. Something burst through the bushes. Burst means come out very quickly. So something came out very quickly from the bushes, and it was an animal. It was a deer. Deer is an animal that we have in Japan too. In Nara, when you go to Nara, there are lots of deers, and people go there and buy senbeis and give the senbeis to the deer. Anyway, it was a wounded deer. Wounded means somebody shot, bang, shot the deer, and therefore the deer was wounded. He was hurt, he was injured. Anyway, this wounded deer burst through the bushes, and he said, "Please help me. I am wounded. I need help." He said, "Please hide me." So this woodcutter was a very kind man, and he said, "Of course I will help you." And he took the deer into his small house, tiny hut, and he hid the deer in the house. Now, after a while, the hunters came, and the hunters asked, "Did you see a deer?" But the woodcutter said, "No, I have not seen anything around here." And so the hunters went away. And then the wounded deer came out from the house, and he said, "Thank you very much for helping me. I would like to do something for you. I would like to repay you. You were very kind to me, and so I want to give my kindness back to you." He said, "I want to repay you." And then the deer looked around the house, and the deer said, I think you need a wife. I think you want a woman. And then the woodcutter said, yes, yes, I would like to get married. He nodded. Nod means he shook his head this way. He nodded and he said, yes, I need a woman. And then the deer said, I can help you. And the woodcutter said, really? Please tell me how I can find a woman. And then the deer said, tomorrow, go to the mountains, and there is a place where there is a waterfall. Waterfall is a long water that coming out from somewhere in the mountains. It comes straight down, the waterfall. Well, he said, go to the waterfall tomorrow. There are many, many ponds around there, little lakes around there. Tomorrow, the fairy princess of heaven, the princess, fairy princess of heaven, the princesses who lives up in the heaven, they come down from the heaven to this pond, to this waterfall, and they are going to take a bath there. They are going to bathe. They are going to take a shower in the waterfall. So go there tomorrow, and then look for the woman that you want. There are 7 sisters, and so when they take a shower, they take their clothes off and they take a shower. Now, when they take their clothes off, you watch the girls and decide which one you like the best, and then steal her dress. Steal means you go there and take the dress away. Steal her dress. The princess cannot go back to heaven without any dresses on. And so if she doesn't have a dress, she can't go back to heaven. She cannot go back home. So she can be your wife. She can become your wife. So the woodcutter said, that is a great idea. I will do that tomorrow. But the deer said something else. He said, but remember, do not give the dress back to the princess unless you have 3 children. After you get married, you'll have a baby, but don't give the dress back to the princess when you have only 2 children. Because if you do that, the princess can go home with the children by herself without you. She will be able to carry one child under one arm, the other child under the other arm, and she can fly back to heaven. Therefore, remember not to give the dress back to the princess until you have 3 children. Now, the woodcutter said, okay, I will remember. And so he said, thank you. And then the wounded deer said, thank you too. And he ran away. He bounded away. Bound away means he has 4 legs, and so he he bounded away. We walk away, but deer and horses, they bound away. Anyway, the next day, the woodcutter went to the waterfall, and he was hiding behind the bushes, and he was watching. Sure enough, at noon, 7 beautiful princesses flew down. They came down from the heaven. They came and they said, sisters, this is a good place to take a shower. Let's take a shower here. So they took their clothes off and they began to take a shower. They were taking a shower, they were laughing, and they were singing, they were playing with the ball, they were having a great time. Now the woodcutter was looking at the girls, and he was trying to find which one he liked the best, and then he saw the youngest girl whom he liked the best. And so he very quietly, he walked very quietly, he crawled very quietly to the youngest sister's dress, and he quickly picked up the dress and he ran back and he hid the dress behind the bushes. Now, after a while, the sisters finished taking a bath and they said, okay, everybody, it's time for us to go home. And they said, let's put our clothes on and go home. So everybody found their dress, and they began to put their clothes on, except the youngest sister. The youngest sister looked and looked and looked for her dress, but she couldn't find her dress. And so she said, sisters, it's strange, I put my dress right here, but I can't find it. It's gone. And so the older sisters looked for the dress, but they could not find it. And so the 6 older sisters, they said, too bad, we are going home, goodbye. And the 6 sisters went back to heaven. The youngest girl, without any clothes on, she didn't know what to do. She looked and she looked, but she couldn't find her dress. So she was thinking, what am I going to do? And then, suddenly, this woodcutter came out from the bush and he said, hello. The youngest sister was very frightened. She was very scared. She was very surprised and frightened. And so she went, ah, who are you? She said. And then the woodcutter said, oh, please don't worry. Here's my jacket. You can wear my jacket, he said. And he said, you know, I am looking for a wife. Would you please marry me? Well, the youngest sister, the princess, didn't know what to do. She can't go back home, and she didn't know anybody on earth. So she said, okay, I will marry you. So the youngest sister, or youngest princess, went back to the small hut, a tiny hut with the woodcutter, and they got married. After several years, the two had 2 children. But during this time, the youngest princess was very sad. She missed her home. She was very homesick every day. So every afternoon she went to the waterfall and she looked for her dress. But she came home empty-handed because she couldn't find it. And every night after the children went to sleep, she cried. She cried and she said, oh, I miss home. I want to see my sisters. One day, the woodcutter forgot about what the deer had said before. He felt so sorry for his wife. He went to the bushes in the waterfall. He took the dress out of from the bushes, and he came home and he said, wife, here, this is your dress. And then the princess was very surprised. She said, this is my dress. Where did you find it? And then the woodcutter said, I am so sorry. I tricked you. I lied to you. I deceived you. I tricked you. He said, I will tell you the true story. I confess. I confess means I tell you the true story. I confess. I tricked you. I stole your dress and I hid it so that you can become my wife because I was very lonely. I wanted to get married. Well, the sister, or the youngest sister, the princess, was not happy to hear it. She was very angry. She said, what? You tricked me so that you can marry me? She said, I cannot believe this. I am so angry with you. I am going home, she said. So she put her jacket on, a dress on. She put one child under one arm. She put the other child under the other arm. She said, goodbye. And she flew back to heaven. Now, after that, the woodcutter was very, very sad because he lost his wife and he lost his 2 children. He did not want to go to work anymore. He never went to the forest to cut the trees. He never cleaned the house, and so the house became very dirty, and he didn't eat, so he became very thin, and he didn't take a shower, so he was very, very dirty, and he cried every night. Well, guess what happened? The deer came back. The deer came back, and he said, hey, I told you not to tell the princess the true story. But the woodcutter said, I forgot your advice. And then the deer said, I will tell you what you can do. I will help you again because you saved my life. The deer said, go to the waterfall again tomorrow. The princesses, 7 fairy princesses, don't come back to the waterfall anymore. They don't come down to take a shower anymore. Instead, they send the big silver bucket to the pond, and they take the water and they pull the water up to heaven, and they take a shower up in the heaven. And so when they send the big bucket down to the waterfall, you can climb into the bucket, and then they will pull you up to heaven, and then you will be able to see your wife and children up in heaven. So the woodcutter the next day went to the waterfall. And when he came to the waterfall, he waited. Sure enough, a big silver bucket was lowered. He quickly climbed into the bucket and he waited. And then soon the bucket was pulled up into the heaven. Now, up into the heaven, the youngest princess and 2 children were watching, and they were overjoyed. They were so happy to see the husband and the father of the children to come up to them. And so this is how the woodcutter went to the heaven to be with his family. And the family, the sister, the youngest sister, and the woodcutter and 2 children lived very happily together up in the heaven for a long, long time. The end.